welcome to the 8th episode of the Veggies Abroad Vegan Travel Podcast with the Chief Veggie Pusher, myself, Rebecca Gady Sawicki. Some of you may already be familiar with Veggies Abroad, but for those of you who aren't, we're a full-service vegan travel company that offers custom planning services, small group trips, a helpful blog chock full of just about everything a vegan or veg-curious traveler could possibly need, and now this podcast. With this podcast, I hope to bring you guys the inside scoop of what vegan-friendly, and eco-friendly businesses are doing in the wide world of travel. Plus, I'll give you the full download of what's going on behind the scenes at Veggies Abroad. So I want to start this episode a little bit differently and talk about one of the driving factors for starting this podcast. I mentioned in the very first episode that aside from talking about travel and veganism, and of course, how they intersect, I would also talk about entrepreneurship. And more importantly, provide a platform to others who are trying to make a difference in this world. And I think I'm doing that. But there is more to it than just the megaphone. I was actually inspired to launch this podcast by another podcast. It has nothing to do with veganism, and actually, I have no idea where this person falls on the scale. But in the very beginning, they started their podcast to share the brutal honesty about their entrepreneurial journey. The ups, the downs, the lost relationships, money, etc., etc. This really resonated with me because those things rarely get spoken about regularly publicly. But I think it's critical for the success of our movement. As an entrepreneur, you feel like you're surrounded by people who are supposedly making it. To the public, the vast majority of businesses appear to be successful and happy, making everyone believe that they've got their shit together. But that's not necessarily the reality. Most business owners that I know or follow refrain from sharing their failures and struggles until it's too late and the doors have to be closed. If any of you saw the Barbie movie, America Ferrera's monologue format can also be used to describe what it's like to run a business. You need to take risks, but nothing too risky or you're deemed irresponsible. You need to constantly hustle and give it all you've got, but not too hard or you'll risk burnout. You need to be positive and optimistic, but somehow realistic, and communicate all of that in a way that makes it look like you've got this. There's no way around it. It's hard. And prior to being on this side of it, I had absolutely no idea. I think back to all the businesses that I thought that were doing well, and then suddenly they weren't. And I wonder if they had been honest that they needed more support, could they have survived? Would their fans have rallied and kept them going? I sure hope so. On the flip side, sometimes it's hard to get business owners and entrepreneurs to be really honest publicly. They feel like it's against some unwritten business oath we all take, because if they don't keep up the appearance, people will think they're weak. In the beginning, I thought that too. I remember people asking me, how's it all going? And I would just reply, great. Part of it, in all honesty, is that there are so many layers to this journey that answering that question is kind of difficult. Especially if you only see or talk to that person once in a blue moon. I mean, you don't want to tell them something else in that moment. You want to paint a rosy picture. And some of the times that I have been honest, I've been met with the response, well, if this fails, you can always get a real job. Let me tell you, no one who is being honest about their struggle wants to be met with that statement. We carry the fear of failure around like it's a backpack. Consider that in your day-to-day life. Sometimes it's probably pretty difficult, but that doesn't mean you automatically go to the nuclear option of quitting, does it? I think sharing all of this is really critical to building the world that we all want to see, one that's kinder and greener. But building that world is hard, and it will take a motivated army to get it all done. And that army is all of you listening. So I will promise to all of you to be transparent in my journey and bring on inspiring people who are doing really fantastic things, as long as you all will be or continue to be champions for these people in the places that are doing great work in your community and or the places that you're visiting. That doesn't always mean spending money. Obviously, that helps a ton if you can. There are plenty of other ways to be a supporter, like writing a positive review, interacting with what they post on social media, sharing their product or service with others. What else? Joining their newsletter. It all matters and probably means more than you can imagine. So one other update before we head over to today's interview. If you've ever dreamed of visiting Africa but were worried about the logistics or if it could be vegan friendly, here is your chance. Our July tour has had some unexpected cancellations, and we need to fill them. You won't find this itinerary anywhere else. It was designed responsibly and sustainably by yours truly. Not all trips are good trips, but you can be rest assured that if you travel with Veggies Abroad, we've prioritized protecting and respecting the people, places, and animals that call these places home. We'll put the link to the trip in the show notes. And of course, feel free to reach out to me with any questions about it. Now, let's get over to my interview with a super inspiring woman who single-handedly made Aruba vegan friendly and went on to build a global army of veggie enthusiasts to do the same thing in their own communities. Meredith Marin is a vegan entrepreneur with a background in social work and community organizing. She is the founder and CEO of Vegan Hospitality, the world's largest professional vegan consultant network, and the only company offering vegan hospitality consultant certification. Vegan Hospitality Consultants helps restaurants, resorts, and hospitality groups streamline food service and customer service for their vegan guests with the mission to usher the hospitality industry into a new era of plant-based dining. Meredith is known in the vegan community for her work transforming Aruba into the most vegan-friendly island in the Caribbean. Through her Vegan Hospitality Network and her mindfulness coaching framework, Meredith's mission is to bring entrepreneurship opportunities, community organizing strategy, and mindfulness tools to the vegan community to help vegans become more effective activists and entrepreneurs. She currently lives in Aruba with her vegan family of 4. She virtually coaches and teaches vegans all over the world how to make an impact on the hospitality industry. Now, let's get over to Meredith. Hi, Meredith. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
I am so excited to be here. I love to chat about Aruba since it's going to be fun.
Yes, it absolutely will, especially as I look out my window and it is very chilly and it is trying to snow. A conversation about a sunny spot, I think, is what probably the vast majority of the population can use right now.
Yes, I think people tell me that they're always jealous of me. And, I haven't experienced the cold in 8 years. But, I mean, it's all I know right now. And I absolutely love to look out my window right now. I'm looking out my window at a pool and at the swaying palm trees.
Oh, that's really nice. I'm going to keep that in my mind for the rest of the day. So I've got to know, and I'm sure that our listeners will want to know too, how did you go from social work and community organizing to starting a vegan hospitality company that is credited for making Aruba vegan friendly?
I actually still consider myself a social worker and a community organizer, and I see my hospitality work through that lens. I know that's kind of a stretch for some people to understand, so I can explain. When I first moved to Aruba, so I moved here in 2016 from New York City. I was born and raised in New York and came to Aruba because I'm married to an Aruban who I met on vacation when I was really young, so it was like 15 years ago. And came to Aruba as a vegan, vegan family. My husband's also vegan. At the time, we had 1 child. Now we have 2 vegan kids. So we came here and realized that we needed to start being vocal vegans and very committed activist vegans in order to find what to eat, because there was just a lack of awareness about vegan options, about just the word vegan, even plant-based, even vegetarian. It wasn't really prevalent on the island in 2016. I would go out to eat and I would see only cheesy pastas on a menu as the only plant-forward option. And I needed to start building relationships with chefs, speaking to people about veganism and what it meant to us in order to get served a good meal. When I mentioned the word vegan, not everybody had the same definition and not everyone knew what to put on our plates. So not just at restaurants, but even like going to my mother-in-law's house. My mother-in-law now, she's like an amazing vegan chef. Every time we go there, she makes the best food for us.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, we're lucky that that's how it turned out. Some people are such accommodating family members. But I think, in the beginning, it was confusing because we would go there and there would be fish on our plate because that's what vegan means to people who don't know what vegan is. And we were like, how do we communicate this without being offensive?
Sure.
So my social work background, it launched me into everything that I do today. It launched me into being able to be mindful and check my own emotions before communicating with others about what veganism meant to me. And it allowed me to build relationships with people that I wouldn't normally have access to. So chefs, restaurant owners, gave me the chance to build a movement in a society that I really had just come into, as an outsider. So I was able to do it in a very respectful way, to not come in and say, you all have to change for me, but to uplift and empower the community and find the other people who lived here and who were visiting here already, who really wanted that change as well, and find enough people who were willing to speak up and ask for that change, but also speak with their money, because I can't go and tell restaurants to put vegan options on their menus and then not support them once they do that, right? They have to be successful with it. So at the time when I started my business, I was also a professor at the University of Aruba, teaching community organizing, teaching advocacy. And that's why when I started the Vegan Aruba movement and started hospitality consulting in Aruba, I saw it as this community organizing project, because I was using the same strategies I was teaching around community organizing to organize for vegans, for local vegans, for vegan guests, and really for anyone who wanted to be vegan but thought it was impossible because they had these barriers in place around the price of food and the accessibility of vegan options.
That's so interesting. I think sometimes when people have career shifts, or, they see something, they've come from a certain career, they don't necessarily look to see how those skills can be interchangeable into something new. And oftentimes there are so many things that have overlap and can help with, creating a movement in Aruba, for example, which is really cool. When you very first started, did you just kind of approach restaurants? How did that initial, how did you get that first ball moving? Because I have to imagine that had to have been very difficult. Maybe not a ball, but more like a boulder.
Well, I had to. So it wasn't even that I, was like, I'm going to go out and change this place. I literally, I would have family visiting from America. So I'd have my dad visiting, for example, for an entire week. And he would say, we need restaurant reservations for every night that I'm there. Okay,
Wow.
well, I have to look through all the menus. So I started by looking at all the restaurants on Yelp. So the top 100 restaurants, and going through their menus and trying to decipher what I could eat there. And to do that, I had to call these restaurants and ask them, what do you serve vegans? Do you know what vegan is? And yeah, sometimes I would get the hang up, right? They were
no.
You don't hear or know what you're talking about. Sometimes I would not, I'd get someone who wanted to help but couldn't. And so I would just ask to speak to the chef, and then I would get a call back from the chef, which I think some people don't realize they can do. You can actually call a restaurant and ask to speak to a chef and talk to them about what's in the food. If they're the only person who can answer those ingredient questions, you can do that. So that's what I did. I would call restaurants in advance. And when I showed up, I would also have to communicate with the server, because sometimes they didn't know that I called in advance. They didn't know, what I was ordering, if it was on menu or some sort of off menu specialty, which often was the case. I needed to have special meals prepared for me. And I made sure that whenever that happened, I would meet the chef in person. I would ask to speak to the chef in person, thank them for making me something. Whether it was good or not delicious, it really didn't make a difference. I still wanted to thank them for making the effort. And then if it was good, I was then doing things to advocate for them to put this on their menu. So I was telling them in person, you should be putting this on your menu. Why not? Then I was taking pictures of the food and pictures of myself with the chef, putting it on Instagram, asking people to comment on the post if they would want to see that food on the menu, telling people to go back to this restaurant and ask for this dish that wasn't yet on the menu. And, the more they see the demand, the more they realize that actually it does need to go on a menu. But the turning point for me was really when I was able to give a little presentation at the Aruba Gastronomic Association, which is like their restaurant association. And I gave this presentation just as a customer. So before I even had a consulting business, but just explaining to these restaurant owners what it's like to be a vegan customer, saying, here's what vegetarian means, here's what vegan means, here's what gluten-free means, here's all the labels that are mixed up on your menus. Here are the pictures of all the pasta marinaras I've had at all of your restaurants. I'm sick of eating pasta marinara. Here's the food that I can make at home. And just showing them, this is what vegans eat. Yeah. And explaining that there is a demand for it. And if they start offering it, people will come. And after that meeting, I had literally a line of restaurant owners waiting to hand me their business cards and asking me to help them, something I never expected. And when they first told me that, I responded like, what do you mean me? What do you mean I'm going to help you? I'm a social worker, this is your job. Don't you want to learn how, teach your chefs how to cook this food? And then I had one restaurant owner say to me, well, our chefs have never seen tofu. They have no idea what to do with it. And I'm updating my menu next week. Would you like to come and help us do that? And if you don't do that, we won't have vegan options on it because we don't know what to do.
Oh my gosh. It's all on you now.
Right? Well, yeah, it felt exciting and it felt scary. And I think it's those turning points, especially as an entrepreneur, where you have to make that choice. Am I going to go for it, even if I'm not 100% sure how it's going to turn out? Or am I going to just, back away and see what happens? And I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer, but I do think for me, the fact that I was able to say yes to that, it created this whole ripple effect. I mean, it changed my life and it changed the life of a lot of other people. At this point, I'm training people to become vegan consultants in their own communities. That would never have happened if I hadn't said yes in that moment. We have vegan tourists coming to Aruba thanking me because they have so many options. That would never have happened if I hadn't said yes. So the fact that I was able to say yes, it just launched a new career path for me, but also showed me that hospitality activism can be a thing. And you can actually make a really big difference by speaking up at restaurants, whether you're a customer or a consultant. You want to give the restaurants the benefit of the doubt that they actually would want to serve you if they knew how. And that's been my biggest experience, is just that people do want to do right by their customers. And if they're not, it's really because there's some sort of obstacle in place that they need potentially support from someone to overcome.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I am actually imagining you standing there with that line of people. And I feel like I can feel the terror that might have been going through your body at that moment.
You remember it very vividly.
I'm sure. When you were standing there at that time, so you were working at the university, did you also have a background at all in hospitality or cooking or anything like that you were bringing to the table? Or was just merely that you wanted to see this change and you stood there and they saw you and were like, all right, she's the person?
So I did not have a background in hospitality, but I would say I had a background in a lot of the skills that I needed to do this kind of work. So when I lived in New York City, I was working as a community organizer in the wellness space, and that involved going into schools and doing food demonstrations, teaching about healthy cooking, going to community events and giving presentations. So the training aspect of my work and the cooking aspect of my work, it wasn't totally new to me. And I think that's also what enabled me to say yes, that I could theoretically think, okay, I can figure out how this is going to go. I did have some recipe development experience just personally being vegan. I went plant-based when I was 18 and now I'm 37. So it was a long time of learning to go fully vegan and to learn that for myself, just like any other vegan does. And if you're committed to cooking, you then learn a lot through that process. So I was very familiar with ingredients. When I got to Aruba, I was cooking all my meals from scratch, every meal, because there wasn't anywhere to go out to eat. Yeah. So any vegan who's been vegan for 1 year and they're cooking 3 meals a day has cooked 1,000 plus vegan meals. So I feel like, I had that experience as just by virtue of being a vegan person and having a vegan family to cook for. And I also believed in myself. I believed in myself enough to figure it out and realize that I did have value to offer. And when I train consultants now, I feel like that's one of the biggest pieces, is that they need to believe in themselves in order to move forward and to take action for their business and for their community. They have to believe that, what they have to offer is important, and not worry about being judged, not worry about making mistakes, not worry about failing. Just consider what value you have to offer and do your best to give that value to other people.
So when you first started, did you ever think this was going to grow beyond you just consulting one-on-one and to you training a small army and having a team that now covers the globe?
Rebecca, I never could have imagined what it has become. And in the beginning, it was really just one step at a time. And I was working with one restaurant, and then another restaurant would contact me, and I'd say, okay, can I do this? Okay, I guess I can. And I'll just go do the next one and the next one. And it went on like that for about a year, where I was going to one restaurant after the next, and just so much success with it. You know, the menu would launch and people would come and eat the food. And I started getting messages from people all over the world who were visiting Aruba telling me that they just had this incredible experience and that they were going home to their countries or cities, you know, like places like San Francisco and New York. And they were telling me that they can't get a good vegan meal at a mainstream restaurant in these places. And I was just blown away. I couldn't imagine that, because I know that these cities have amazing food, but there are a lot of great vegan restaurants. But back then, you know, this was like 2017, you couldn't really find vegan menus at mainstream restaurants. And in many places, you still can't. So for Aruba to have all these vegan menus, it's like this, we sort of created these mini vegan restaurants within these mainstream restaurants. And people started asking me, how did you do this? Can you teach me? Can you teach me how to do it? Or can you come to my city and do this? And through that, I decided to teach people. So I wasn't sure how to do it. I first thought maybe I should just make a YouTube channel or make a little pamphlet or something like that. And as I started creating my content, I realized that I had so much content that it was a 12-week course. So, you know, and it's not like it's a huge course. Like it's like university style. The amount of content is basically equivalent to the amount of hours you would spend on a university course. So I created this course and I said, you know what? I don't even know if anyone would actually want to do this. This is a lot of work. Like someone would have to actually take this whole course and implement it. And then I just put up a post on Instagram one day and I said, you know what? I'm starting this course. Let's see what happens. And within 48 hours, it was full. I had eight people. I decided I was going to do 8 slots. And I had more than 8 people apply, but I did all these interviews and chose 8 people for my first cohort.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I was blown away and super excited. And then through that process, I was getting more applications and I was like, really? Like we should keep doing this? Okay. So, every step of the way evaluating how things are going. But then I was in the middle of my second or third cohort and COVID happened and we were all locked down. I mean, it was such a strange beginning to this process to have the restaurants, the hotels being on lockdown and be trying to train people to do the work to consult for restaurants and hotels. And that was a second moment where I was like, should I keep doing this? Should I keep training people? What's the point? But people kept applying and people kept telling me that they were getting so much out of my program and that they wanted to learn to do this work, whether or not the restaurants were ready for it. They wanted to learn because they knew that eventually there would be a place for it. And so I kept training people and I kept doing it. And now I'm on my 14th cohort after, years later. I've trained over 100 people and I think now about 30 people got certified. So we have an extra process. Once they're trained, they actually have to take action and work with clients to get certified. And I could have never, ever imagined where it's gone. And now I'm starting to envision where it's going. Now being more intentional, planning, what are our steps for the future? What are our goals? I also have 2 people working with me now in different countries on my leadership team. So helping me envision the future of vegan hospitality. But it's become so much more than I could have ever expected. And yet it still is also what it started as, which is Vegan Aruba. So Vegan Aruba for me now is not a business. I raise vegan hospitality as the business, but Vegan Aruba is still very present as a movement. It's still very present as a resource. We have a website called veganaruba.com for anyone who wants to travel to Aruba and learn about the vegan options. And I also still manage the Instagram account for Vegan Aruba, which is just at Vegan Aruba. So I'm very much involved in the local travel and also with just following up and supporting the global consultants.
Awesome. So you talk about the lineup of people who were interested in coming to you. And so obviously they already were buying in that they needed to make a change and that they needed your help. But on the flip side of that, I'm guessing you've probably had to just approach businesses maybe blindly. that didn't necessarily know that they needed to make a change or that this was something that they needed to consider. Can you talk a little bit about like the challenges of, reaching out to a business and getting them to have this buy-in that they, need to consider having vegan options on their menu?
People always ask me that. And I think it's so interesting because there's this perception that we need to go out and convince restaurants to make a change. And as I look through my portfolio of the work I've done, I will say, I don't think I've ever been successful at that. I don't think I've ever really set that as my goal to go and convince places to change. I think that I've been very responsive to places that need help. And sometimes they're going to identify that they need help. And so I'm there to help. And sometimes they need a bit more guidance in the process to help them identify that they do have some issues serving vegan guests and that they need support with that. But I don't feel that that's ever been a major challenge for me as far as like needing to go out and convince places to change. I think I've been really privileged in that sense to be in a community where it's very tourism focused and very welcoming. And so when guests are saying, look, you can't serve us and that's a problem, the hospitality community realizes that and recognizes that as a problem and wants to change. And when someone can come in and support them with that change in a professional way, they've been really welcoming with open arms. I mean, I've had partnerships with gourmet chefs, like Michelin trained chefs who want my support with their vegan options. And I've worked with people who have no culinary education who are working their way up and managing kitchens because they needed to. And they just have no knowledge of what vegan is and realize that they need that support because it's just so crucial to succeeding these days. Like vegan customers do exist. They're going to come in, they're going to ask for these things. And if you don't serve them properly, your restaurant gets negative reviews. Your restaurant has liability issues potentially with people who have allergies. So what I see is that it's truly a necessity these days. And there isn't that much convincing that needs to go on from my end. Through the consultants I've trained, I teach them that your role is not to convince restaurants to change. However, I do see that, depending on the community, there are greater challenges. Not every community is going to be open and welcoming and ready for the change, but we need to be realistic and look at the demand. So are you in a community where there is a demand for vegan options? Then how can you support the restaurants in seeing that demand? Why aren't they seeing the demands? We need to look into that and investigate. And I think part of that is my curiosity as a social worker. I'm a trained interviewer, so I can go and speak to a chef and a restaurant owner and a manager and keep that conversation going and interview them to try to figure out what's going on for them. Are they serving vegan guests? If not, why not? If they are serving them, how's it going? Are they looking at the reviews they're getting? What are their goals and their vision for improving their service to vegan guests? There's so many interesting questions we can ask. And we really want to approach these hospitality professionals with questions rather than with some sort of pitch or convincing argument as to why they should be doing something differently. We really want to be curious about why they are doing what they're currently doing and how we can support them to move into the future.
I think that's a very good point about kind of meeting some of these places where they're at, as far as if they're in the tourism sector or if they're in a city that maybe is a bit more receptive to veganism in general. That is going to be a much easier conversation than, I'm thinking about in northern Michigan, like in the middle of nowhere. That's going to probably be a much more difficult conversation to have. But at the same time, places like that need to be considerate of it as well, because if they're the only game in town, then they naturally can have the leg up maybe over their competitor. Because I'm sure, as you have found that there's something called, what I was reading it the other day, the vegan vote, where if there's a vegan in a group of friends, the friends are probably going to say, okay, well, where can you eat? And so I think that's something that restaurants and businesses have to keep in mind, that you're not just serving vegans specifically, you're serving groups of people. I'm sure that's something that you have, encountered with working with people as well.
Absolutely. So we talk about it as the veto vote, like
the veto vote.
So It's yeah, I mean, when you think about these communities where they're not really wanting to serve vegan guests for whatever reason, we want to first start with why are they not wanting that? Maybe they're afraid if they put the word vegan on their menu that they're going to get backlash from their loyal customers, which is not a far out there fear. That is potentially a valid concern that they might have, and their business is at stake. So they do need to protect their business interest, which is, why do restaurants exist? Because they want to make money. And so we have to realize that there must be some sort of financial incentive, or at least not a risk of financial loss if they're going to be changing their culinary programming to cater to vegan guests. Especially vegan guests are a tiny minority in their potential market. So when we're talking about groups of people coming in, we can also talk to them about not just that one vegan, like you said, but the group of people, and also the various needs of their customers. So we have this general trend in the industry of increased menu customization. So that's when customers are coming in and they're no longer ordering exactly what's on the menu, but they're asking for something without the cheese, add this, subtract this. And this is just an industry problem overall. And I believe it's a menu design problem. So when you're engineering menus that are just too specific for one niche and you're not going to be opening up to what the customer's needs are currently in our population, then you're going to get a lot of menu customization requests. So it's not just a vegan issue. You're going to have people asking to make something gluten-free or lactose-free or, whatever it is, or healthier or without oil. So what we can do is we can find out, what's going on for these restaurants, what are the issues they're facing, and then see if they can solve those issues by re-engineering their menu and opening it up to more customers. And by virtue of doing that, they're naturally going to be opening them up to vegan guests because they're going to be making changes that will allow for easier menu customization. It'll allow for less cross-contamination in the kitchen. And these are things that a consultant can support restaurants with, and it's going to make their life easier. So the goal here is not to make their life harder. When we add vegan options to the menu, we want it actually to be easier than what they're currently doing. Because you'll see that even a restaurant in northern Michigan is going to be getting a random vegan guest every now and then. And what happens for that restaurant is that the chef has to drop everything they're doing and go cook some customized vegan meal for this guest because nobody else in the kitchen knows what to do with this vegan guest, and there's nothing on the menu to order. And that's actually an annoying problem for a restaurant to have. It's much easier for them to have a great vegan option on their menu that the whole staff is trained to prepare, and then the vegan guest doesn't have to ask a bunch of questions, can order something on the menu, and the chef doesn't have to drop everything they're doing in that moment. So the goal really is to make the lives of everyone easier, not just the customer, but also the restaurant itself.
That is a really great point. I always get annoyed when places have like just a vegetarian option and they aren't considerate of, the whole cheese thing, or it's not easy to take the cheese off of it, or, they're not easy to customize it to make it gluten-free. I'm also annoyingly gluten-free. And so it's just like, these are really easy things that you could do, like make it so that you could take this off, or, make the base of it vegan, and maybe you could add things to it if the client was just vegetarian. And you're right. That has to be such a frustrating thing to encounter in a kitchen when you're really busy and a server comes back and is like, so I have a table at 10 and there are 2 vegans and we don't have any food for them. Like, I can only imagine the face of that chef in that moment thinking, oh God, I mean, what do you do? Make them leave? Like, you have to do something.
Like, what they're encountering is their best case scenario is that the chef has to then do everything to cater to those guests. And in the worst case scenario, they're turning away that entire group.
Yeah.
And they're losing a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. Were you concerned at all that this could harm potentially the vegan movement in Aruba? I think sometimes there is this argument of, vegans coming in and wanting to change things to meet their needs and change the culture of places. And that, we're only using it to our whims. Was that ever a concern of yours, that you were worried that these places would just think of you as some outsider coming in and wanting to, make things suit your needs?
Absolutely. It's always been on my mind, not necessarily as a vegan, but as a social worker, understanding coming into another culture and acting like entitled as if I'm going to change them. But the truth is that I'm the one who was asked to help. And I didn't come in and really ask anyone to change anything other than just serve me a meal until I was asked to help. And I was only asked to help because they realized it wasn't just me who needed these changes, but that they were already dealing with issues that necessitated these changes, and they didn't know how. So I'll give you an example of a client I'm working with right now who came to me for help because they had a chef who created a separate vegan menu at this hotel. They did this because they were getting a bunch of vegan requests at this hotel, and they didn't have anything vegan on their menu. So the chef went to a food distributor, bought all the vegan products, the vegan chicken nuggets and the vegan sausages and all the vegan things, and put them all on a menu. But the chef didn't have any knowledge of what vegan is. And so they put it with mayo sauce and actually a vegan menu. And this is a major problem, obviously. So the new chef came in. That chef left about a month after he made that menu. A new chef came in, realized all these problems, but didn't have the expertise to fix the problems, and realized that there's value in bringing in a consultant to support his work so that he could focus on what he's really good at, which is the more traditional options. And so he could also support his staff in getting professional development opportunities because he would not only have to make these changes, but then also train the entire staff to understand why we're making these changes. And not only the back of house, but front of house. You need to train the servers to speak about the vegan options. You need to train the people answering the phone at the reception desk who are talking to vegan customers who are booking their stay, and they have to speak with confidence on what's in the food. So it's actually quite a lot of work to do for a chef or a general manager that doesn't really have these that expertise. So they came to me for help, and I'm working with them to re-engineer the menu to make sure that it is going to benefit all their customers, not just the stray vegans that come in, but actually from interviewing them, I realized that there are people who want vegan options, not just because they're vegan, but because they're perceived as healthier or more sustainable. And so we're integrating a lot of these vegan options into their general traditional menu so that everybody can enjoy them. And then we are also creating a separate vegan dinner menu to attract vegan guests from all over the island. So not just people staying at that hotel, but we really want to make them into an attractive place for people to come and enjoy a special vegan dinner. So there's just so much to benefit from it. There's so much to benefit from doing it right. And there's so much to lose from making mistakes, because those reviews that you get online, when you make those mistakes, those are permanent. Those stay there and they bring down the rating. So it's really not worth the risk.
Hey there, fantastic listeners. Let's hit pause on this episode for a thrilling announcement, a golden ticket to Globetrot with Veggies Abroad. Veggies Abroad isn't just your go-to for vegan guides and trip planning tips. It's your passport to extraordinary small group journeys, carefully crafted by the ultimate veggie pusher and your favorite podcast host, me, Rebecca Gady Sawicki. I've spent countless hours researching the best vegan hotels, food, and experiences, and now I'm bringing those experiences directly to you. Join me and my newfound veggie pals on escapades to exciting and exotic destinations around the world. Whether it's trekking through the Thai jungle to witness elephants in their natural habitat, or staying at a carbon-neutral camp in Kenya during the Great Migration, our adventures are nothing short of spectacular. And guess what? Those aren't the only exciting trips awaiting you. So what are you waiting for? Cruise on over to veggiesabroad.com pronto. Well, how about after this episode is over, to explore our dazzling lineup of 2024 trips and secure your spot on your next vegan adventure today. Oh my gosh, yeah. Some of them can be really searing as well. I always tell people, I've been asked, if I leave bad reviews, and I actually never do, because I never know in the moment what's going on at that business. Like, did somebody have a bad day, or did something run out? Were they just super busy? And I would hate to be the one to, tear down the potential for more vegan options to end up on a menu, or for them to never consider it again. I feel like there's so many ripple effects to what that review can have.
It's so true. I feel the same. I also don't write bad reviews because I think writing a bad review leads to exactly what you just described. It leads to them thinking vegan customers are picky, vegan customers are going to ruin their reputation, and it just makes them not want to serve more vegan customers. So it's much better to speak directly to the management if there's a problem. And this is something that I'm super passionate about, because if we really want to see change, we have to be brave enough to tell the truth. How many times have vegans gone to restaurants, been asked, hey, how was the food? And they're like, oh, it was fine. And then they leave and they never come back. But actually the food wasn't good. You know, they had issues with it and they didn't share the truth. But the only way to make change is to share the truth and to, of course, share it tactfully and nicely.
Yes.
We have to be clear about what's actually going on if we want to push for change and give people a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Send an email, talk to someone directly. I think those are, and I think that is received so much better from the people and the places because they appreciate that you've taken the time and you're considerate about it. Because it's, really easy to be a jerk from behind a computer, but it's not always easy to be empathetic and understanding in person. And I think the world overall just needs more of that in general.
Totally agree.
So looking ahead, so much has happened for you and building, where you are to this point. But I have to imagine that you're not stopping where you're at. Are there specific goals or initiatives that you're looking ahead for the future?
Yes. So our biggest initiative right now is we're working on a vegan-friendly hotel certification. It's going to be, I believe, the first truly vegan-friendly hotel certification that's going to have an actual auditing process attached to it. So we've been training all of these consultants in all of these countries, and we have essentially this team of people now that's in a position to actually be auditing places to make sure that they are really vegan-friendly. So we're in the process of developing our criteria. We're in the process of starting to certify places that fit in with that criteria, and soon we'll be announcing all of this, but you get the first look at it, the first preview. And the goal is to not only provide certification so that vegan customers will understand where they can stay when they're traveling, but to actually create an incentivization program where the hotels have what to work toward. So part of the certification process is that they're going to be paired with a consultant auditor who can actually work with them on strategic planning goals so that they can create more vegan-friendly experiences for their vegan guests. So, for example, if they might qualify because they have vegan food options, maybe a goal they might work toward is having vegan-friendly rooms, having vegan toiletries, and other things like that. So it's really to incentivize places to become more vegan-friendly.
Okay, so now that we've got a great idea of your role within Aruba's vegan scene, let's dive into it and give our listeners some great ideas for planning their own vacation, because you have to be the best source for telling people everywhere to go and what to do and where to eat. So for those who haven't been to the beautiful island of Aruba, can you share what the vegan scene was like before you started the organization and what's going on today?
Well, what it was like was pretty non-existent. I would say there were maybe 2 places serving vegan options. There was a beach shack that had smoothie bowls, and there was a restaurant downtown that had, more plant-forward dishes. But at this point, in 2016, when I first got to Aruba, there wasn't any vegan specialty product in a supermarket. So there were no vegan meats or vegan cheeses. There was tofu at the Asian supermarkets, and there was soy milk in the refrigerators. And that was truly it. Now you can find anything, truly anything. You can find any vegan meat or cheese or ice cream or snack or, every vegan milk. Anything you can think of is here in the supermarkets. And you will not only find products you're familiar with, but you'll see products from all over the world, which is really exciting. So Aruba imports a lot of their food, like over 90% of the food is imported because of the climate here. There's not a lot of fresh food growing. The agricultural environment is desert-like. So we import almost everything. And you're going to get food from the Netherlands because Aruba is part of the Dutch kingdom. You'll see food from Latin American countries. So you'll see lots of fruits from Venezuela. You will see American products. If you're coming from America, you're familiar with those products. And, really even like we'll get like this rogue product from Canada, like random thing from all over the place because the supermarkets have access to a lot of interesting suppliers. So we truly have so many products that we can utilize. And when I first started making menus here, I was making whole food plant-based menus completely because there were no specialty products. And that is amazing and really fun. And, I have great menus because of that. But now I'm also able to use all of these fancy specialty product, special processed products, the vegan cheeses, and every kind of vegan cheese you can think of. We get all these things on menus, and so the menus do reflect that. And you'll see that there are vegan options at pretty much anywhere you're going to go in the tourism-focused area. So in Palm Beach or Eagle Beach, you're going to have a ton of options, and also in downtown Oranjestad, you're going to have a lot of options. There are not a lot of fully vegan restaurants here, but you'll see that many of the mainstream restaurants have like mini vegan restaurants within them because they're going to show you a separate vegan menu.
That's awesome. Is the restaurant that you were first referring to Yemanja?
Yes. Wow.
That is, I will never forget that place. And I actually, now that I send clients to Aruba often because I feel like it's the easiest. It is the most vegan friendly. And there are multiple places there that I really like. But I was always concerned for so long, like, are they going to take the options off their menu? Are they going to change it? Because that was the place that I went to the last time I was in Aruba. And when I last went, there were not the options that there were today. And so we had to like fight for a reservation there. We snuck in and sat at the bar multiple times because the food was delicious for one. But two, they were really the only game in town. So I'm so happy they have continued doing that.
Yeah, they actually have now a vegan barbecue platter that is one of my favorite dishes on the island. That platter has been around for 4 or 5 years now. And one of the funny things is about Yemanja is that I'm friendly with the owner, who's the chef, and she is the only chef on the island that has told me she has seen a decrease in demand for vegan options. And I said to her, there's a lot more competition than when you started. So
yeah.
Right? She was the only game in town, and all the vegans were going there. And now, now you can go anywhere. And so, of course, she's going to see a bit of a decrease in demand, but everyone else is seeing an increase because they're places that could not serve vegan guests, and now they can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if she's listening, please don't stop what you're doing. And the next time I'm in Aruba, I will make sure to make a reservation ahead of time and not do what I did the last time.
No one's stopping. I think that if anything, people are going to increase their vegan options and just make them better.
Yes. I love to hear that. So what are some of your favorite restaurants that you always like to send people to that you think have just really standout options if you're visiting?
Okay, well, I'm going to start with the most fancy, expensive place. And
all right.
If you are coming to Aruba and you are willing to spend your money and have an really incredible dining experience, then you have to go to Infini. Infini is a chef's table experience, and the chef who runs it is Irvin Cruz. He's a famous chef in not just Aruba, but in the Caribbean in general. And this is it's an 8-course, fully vegan experience. So they seasonally change their menus 4 times a year. And for every traditional menu they create, they make a vegan version of it. And it's just phenomenal. So I can't recommend it enough. If you are willing to go for that, then I recommend you make a reservation in advance because it's a very small chef's table experience. And you definitely have to make a reservation and say that you're coming for the vegan menu.
Where on the island is it located?
That's on Eagle Beach. So most of the general hospitality scene is in Eagle Beach or Palm Beach or Oranjestad, which is the downtown area. So beyond Infini, the same chef also has a smaller restaurant called Poke Ono, which I also recommend. It's a kind of like a Hawaiian theme, sushi theme. And there's my favorite dish there is called the Peace and Love roll. It's a vegan roll, and he makes like little vegan caviar balls that go on top of it. There is a fully vegan cafe downtown in Oranjestad called One Happy Bowl. And they have, it's like a make your own bowl situation. So you can choose what you want on it. But they've been around for a long time and they are delicious. They're more of a breakfast lunch place. If you're coming on a cruise ship, you definitely want to go to One Happy Bowl because it's downtown. And also there's another fully vegan coffee shop. It's called Kappa Craft, and they recently opened. They're on West Strat, also downtown. And the owners of that place are opening a new vegan restaurant. It's supposed to be open in March. So if you're probably going to release this episode after March, and it's called Mondi Replica, and it's called Replica because they're replicating traditional Aruban dishes, but veganized. So I'm super excited about that place opening up. Now, if you want beachfront dining, a lot of people like to come here and have their toes in the sand while they're eating. So I recommend going to Hari Kurari, which is on Palm Beach, on the Palm Beach Strip near the Marriott, or Passions on the Beach, which is on the Eagle Beach Strip. And both of those restaurants, you can get vegan options with your toes in the sand. Should I go on? Because there are so many more options I can
I'm just like, wow, this is awesome.
One of my favorite places is a hotel that I worked at and consulted for, and I'm actually working with them again to update their menu right now. This is a hotel called Manchego Resort, and the restaurant there is Ike's Bistro. And Ike's Bistro has one of the best and most extensive vegan menus on the island, and they're known for it. So it's not just the vegans that are going there for this menu, but people who stay at the hotel are also ordering from their separate vegan menu. It's just really popular. There is a grilled fish fillet on that menu that is so cool. Like, people don't realize it's not fish.
It sounds amazing.
It's really like a top seller. And they also have a truffle porcini risotto that's really popular. Okay, I have to mention a couple more places. There is a restaurant called Eduardo's Beach Shack. Have you been there? Because that's the other place I was talking about. That
place is so cute. And I was actually worried because so I had mentioned sending clients there, and Eduardo's was working with a hotel for a while, providing them breakfast stuff. And then that hotel was like, oh, we're going to do our own thing now. And I was like, no, don't do that. Does that mean you won't have vegan options? Eduardo's did such a good job.
Yeah. Boardwalk?
Boardwalk. So I'm glad that Eduardo's is still hanging in there. And Boardwalk does still have some vegan options.
So Boardwalk now has the Coco Cafe that has vegan options. And Eduardo's is not just hanging in there. They have 4 locations now.
Oh my God, good for them.
Amazing. So you can go find an Eduardo's anywhere, probably in walking through your day. And one of their locations also does dinner. It's Eduardo's Hideaway. Also in Nord, like near the Palm Beach area. It's fantastic. So I highly recommend Eduardo's for the smoothie bowls, but also for so many other things. If you want to have a romantic dinner, I recommend Faro Blanco, which is the restaurant up at the lighthouse. One of the most gorgeous views you're going to have on the island because you're just up on a hill and you can see everything. And that's also a restaurant that I worked with years ago to make vegan options. So they have a vegan penne alla vodka, a vegan grilled Caesar salad. They have vegan pizzas. So that is definitely a recommendation for something just beautiful and romantic. And there are just so many other options that I recommend. I would say my favorite dish on the entire island is at this Indian restaurant, and the dish is called Matai mushroom. The restaurant is called Tandoor. It's in the Palm Beach area. So if you love Indian food and you want to go eat Indian food on your Aruban vacation, I know it's very niche, but I'm telling you, it's just like so good. And you won't have had anything like it before. These oyster mushrooms and, different kinds of mushrooms to make this amazing creation.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
If you want more recommendations, then please feel free to message me at Vegan Aruba on Instagram, because I am currently working with places and I'm always keeping my website updated as well, veganaruba.com. So you can always go to the website see what's good. And I list things also by location. So you'll know exactly how to plan your trip if you consult the website. And if you have any questions, just reach out to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So beyond food, there are also some vegan-friendly shops and hotels on the island that visitors can check out too, right?
Yeah, I mean, we also have local vendors. So, like, for example, one of my best friends makes local makeup and sunscreen, and she's actually just veganized her entire sunscreen line.
Oh,
So
awesome.
it's called Aruba Life Organics, and you can find that at any like they call them botica, which is like the drugstore, or the supermarket drugstores. You can find that. She has like all natural deodorant, all natural sunscreens, and it's really nice to support locals when you come here. So look for anything that says it's local on it, and especially at the local shops, like you'll see souvenir shops and you'll see local brands, and it's just really useful for the community to feel supported by the tourism community. Beyond that, like supermarket wise, there are two major supermarkets. There's Superfood and there's Ling & Sons. Both of them are vegan friendly. I would say these days, Superfood is a little more vegan friendly. I don't know why exactly. I can't tell you why. Actually, I trained Ling & Sons years ago. I did a whole vegan training for them, and they have a whole vegan refrigerator. But for some reason, I'm just finding lately Superfood has more vegan products in stock. They're more of a Dutch supermarket, and Ling & Sons is more American style. And I think just there's a lot of interesting Dutch products that are coming in these days that are vegan friendly. So I recommend going to Superfood. But of course, if you're closer to Ling & Sons and need to go there, I'm sure you'll find what you need.
That's awesome. I don't remember. I'm trying to think back the last time that I was there, if I went into a grocery store or not. I don't think I did, or maybe I did and we didn't find anything. So that's really nice to see how much has changed.
What year were you here? Do you remember?
I think it was around 2016 or so.
Okay. Yep. That's exactly what my experience was. How much has changed? And people tell me like, wow, I came years ago and it was like this, and I can't believe how much has changed. And you're even seeing the local, just like local ice cream vendors making vegan options. There's a local ice cream called Keta Vegan, where you'll find them in the gas stations, in the supermarkets, everywhere.
Oh, that's awesome.
You'll see vegan ice creams. You'll see Coco Douchi, which is a popular like vegan ice cream in a coconut. And you'll see even local bakeries. Like there's a bakery down the street from me called Nord Pastry. And owner of that, we went in there and he told us that he's starting to veganize a lot of his pastries just by default. He thinks they taste better without dairy. And he's realizing that a lot of other people want dairy-free options. So he's making pastries that are vegan. So there's truly a lot of options, and you just have to ask, especially if you don't see something on the menu, you just have to ask. Not everybody's going to have their menus labeled perfectly, but because there's so many products here that places have to work with, they have this ability to make vegan options, and you can even still call in advance. If you're going to a place, like you're stuck, going to a wedding or you're going to an event where you don't see vegan options, you can call in advance. And I really believe that most places will accommodate you.
Do you think some places don't label their vegan options because they're worried that it might turn off other people?
I do think generally in the world that is an issue, but the funny thing is in Aruba, I think we have the opposite problem. I think people overlabel, and they overlabel the vegan options. Like you see the word vegan everywhere, and it's like it'll be like vegan menu, and then it'll be like vegan burger, vegan fries, vegan rice. It's like so popular and so overused. So I actually think that we don't really have that problem. I think if they're not labeling it, it's just because they don't know or haven't had the money or the time to reprint menus. I think it's just, I think it's just a lack of knowledge.
I think asking is always a really great thing for people to remember. I was in Italy last year, and there were quite a few places that I'd go in and I'd check their menu, and I was like, I honestly don't think there's anything on this damn menu that's vegan. And then I'd ask, and they'd be like, oh, yeah, that is. And I'm like, okay, guys, geez, you make this really, really difficult. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I mean, one of my biggest initiatives is to just get everyone to label their menus properly. But because they're not all going to do that, that's why I started my website, so that people don't message me every time they want to know if something's vegan, so they can just look on the website and find out.
Yeah, Please, every time someone comes down, I can imagine that at some points of the year, your inbox would get pretty well filled up.
Yeah, well, that's how it started, with everyone asking me, hey, where do you think I should eat? And then I was like telling everyone, okay, these are my top places. And it just became so much that I thought, why don't I put this on a website and people can just go there? But people still message me. Like, I had a message yesterday from someone who said, I'm eating at this place and I want to go out somewhere for a vegan dessert. Like, can you tell me which vegan dessert is in walking distance from where I am now?
Oh my gosh.
You know what? Some people might find that annoying, but I'm just going to respond. And then I gave her like 5 different vegan desserts she could get in walking distance. And she was like so excited about it. I'm like, you know what?
Oh my God.
Send someone somewhere where they're going to spend money for supporting locals and supporting the economy and showing the demand for vegan food. Like, what a privilege that is for me to be able to be a resource.
Yeah, I mean, that is really amazing. Like, you are literally changing the landscape of a place and making it more cruelty-free day by day. And that is a really cool thing to be able to be a part of. And I hope that people really appreciate the help, because that is, I mean, it is a lot of effort sometimes to like keep up with those messages. In Aruba, is there, so like over in our area here, we have like a vegan organization that does event organizing and, puts on different types of things throughout the year. Do you guys have that on the island?
We don't. I used to have a vegan advocacy group, but we really didn't do much, I would say. Like, we would meet up and there wasn't anything specific that we really felt was needed to do. Like, I go out and I do lectures for anyone who asks. So I've done lectures at the government, at the central bank, at schools, at businesses. There are other people who I think are willing to also do things like cooking demos and cooking classes. So it's a very tight-knit community, and people ask and we provide. There is a vegan WhatsApp group, so we communicate in that way. There is a sustainability WhatsApp group. There are a lot of people, not necessarily vegan, but people just that are interested in sustainability of the island and, interested in ecotourism versus like the over-tourism sometimes we're seeing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of issues with just, people worrying about the island being over-commercialized and too built up, and the pressure that puts on the island, on the systems, the water systems, the sewage systems, everything that's affected when you just have so much tourism. So there is an interest in general of sustainability and just taking care of the environment on this island. And there are advocacy initiatives around that. Personally, I'm pretty busy with my vegan initiatives, but I like to keep up to date with what is going on and, of course, support as much as I can.
Yeah, there are, aside from the vegan, movement within the island, the sustainability part has really picked up. And I know there are a few resorts. You mentioned one, Manchego, and Bucati and Terra also. They both have some really great sustainability initiatives and community involvement that they have instituted. And I actually think maybe even Bucati, am I saying it correctly?
Bucati and Terra.
I think that they've kind of become an example or set the stage for many other places throughout the Caribbean as well, with some of their wastewater management and water recycling programs. And really is quite a lengthy rap sheet that they have going on there. So they're doing some very cool things.
Yeah, Bucati and Terra was the first carbon neutral hotel in the Caribbean. They are just amazing. I actually worked with them also years ago, I think in 2018, to help them with their vegan options and train their staff. And I mean, the owner there is just a forward-thinking individual who cares so much about the environment and the community, and really seems to be doing everything he possibly can to be an environmentally conscious hospitality professional. So Bucati and Terra is one of my recommendations for people who want to come and have a vegan-friendly experience. It is an adult-only hotel, so just know that when you're booking it. Mm-hmm. And Manchego also, similarly, it's on the same beach, so they're literally neighbors. They're also one of the most vegan-friendly options. And like you mentioned, Boardwalk is also a place that I recommend because they do have vegan options, but also they're right there in Palm Beach, and they're really close to the vegan-friendly restaurants. And as far as other hotels, people ask me a lot about all-inclusives. Like, are there all-inclusive vegan options? So I haven't experienced that yet. I haven't experienced like a fully all-inclusive vegan option. I would love to work with hotels that want to do that. And I'm currently talking to a hotel that might be interested in that. But at this point, the most vegan-friendly all-inclusive I've heard of is the Ryu, which apparently they have a lot of buffets with vegan options. I don't know exactly what those vegan options are, but people tell me that they are vegan-friendly. And then the other hotel I would recommend is Paradise Beach Villas, which is the place I'm currently working with. And I would say by April, our new menus should be available.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. I'll have to add that to my list as well. So last question, and it's a fun one. If you could go anywhere in the world right now, all expenses are paid, where would you go and why?
Wow. Well, what comes to mind is Thailand. Thailand is a place that I've always been interested in going. And I mean, I'm a Thai food lover. If I'm making food at home, it's going to be Thai food because there's actually no Thai restaurant in Aruba. And it's the thing that I miss most about living in New York is the easily accessible Thai food. So I would love to go to Thailand and also just be able to have a place to be in Asia where I could just, visit the other Asian countries as well. I feel like it's a good hub. And I don't know, it's some place that I just don't even know how to describe. Like, I feel like I have this connection to Thailand from just watching all these travel blogs and Instagrammers go there. And I feel like I'm meant to be there at some point. So next time there is some sort of opportunity that I'm able to take, I will definitely be going there. It's top of my bucket list.
It is an awesome place to have on your bucket list, for sure. I just ran a vegan tour to Thailand last November, and it was fantastic. And one of the complaints from the group was they ate too much. So I would say you would get your fill.
So funny. It's my dream to go on a tour like that. I have 2 kids, so I'm sort of homebound.
Yeah,
right now.
I bet.
The vegan tour myself, but I'm sure there will come a point when I can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you create your own. I'm sure that you would create a marvelous one, just with everything that you've already done.
Thank you.
So if people are interested in learning more about joining the Vegan Hospitality Program or learning about your work, where should they go?
You can go to veganhospitality.com. We have all the information there, but I'm easily accessible on Instagram at Meredith Marin or at Vegan Aruba or at vegan.hospitality. Yes, I have to manage all 3 accounts, but you're messaging me anywhere. And you can also email me, meredith@veganhospitality.com.
Fantastic. And do you have an upcoming cohort for your program that people might be able to get involved with if they're interested?
Yes, I'm currently interviewing for our cohort that starts April 7th. I don't know when you're going to be releasing this podcast, so that cohort might be full, but I run them every couple months, so you're welcome to apply anytime. And I interview people on a rolling basis. So I interview people once we have spots open, and then we can discuss which dates and times are available.
Ah, fantastic. And it is a 12-week program, correct?
It's 12 weeks. I've been running the live trainings on Sundays for as long as I can remember. It seems to be the best day for people. And I try to vary the times so that we can fit multiple time zones because I do have people all over the world in every cohort.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to seeing your new hotel hospitality program and watching what you do next. And it was so nice to chat with you today.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. If you'd also like to learn more about upcoming Veggies Abroad tours or get additional travel help, visit veggiesabroad.com and also join our newsletter. It's the best way to stay up to date with loads of new content, like where to find gorgeous vegan hotels, what to eat in cities around the world, trip planning tips, and so much more. Well, that's all I've got for now. Until next time.